So this is the 2-week update after using the Supernote A5X2 Manta for a couple of weeks, and I use it primarily for writing and note-taking. The newness factor of this device is pretty much worn off, so now it's time for this device to get to work. And so I want to share my experience after using this device for a couple of weeks, and maybe what you could also experience after a couple of weeks if you had this as well. And full disclosure, Rada sent me this tablet as well as this pen. Does that influence all of these videos that I make? Absolutely, because I did not buy this myself, but I am trying my best in the most objective way possible to just talk about my experience and how I use it. But I have been a long-time Supernote user, as I bought the A6X with my own money 3 years ago, and it's been my daily driver ever since. So the first thing I want to mention from my 2-week experience is that the writing feels really good. And there's two parts to this writing feel equation, right? There's the writing surface, which they've done an excellent job on, and then there's the pen. So I want to sort of break this down a little bit and explain what I'm talking about. In terms of the writing surface itself, it's still very grainy, it's very textured, and it gives it a closer feel to paper. It's not exact, but it's a lot closer than the A6X did. This A6X, although it's very excellent, it's smooth. It's, again, more like what you'd find when you sign your name at like the bank on one of those digital displays, like the plastically feel. Again, it feels great, but that's more of what this feels like. They really stepped up the feel and the texture by adding that whatever it is to the surface a whole lot better. But that's only part of the equation. The second part of the equation is the pen. I mentioned this before. The Lamy pen, although it does not look good, in my opinion, aesthetically, it doesn't look good. This is the best pen because in the long term, I think more people will appreciate the weight of it. It's so light, as well as the feel of it being plastic. And this is something that I thought about for a while. This is not I'm not gonna dive in so much to talk about this pen. I already did that in a previous video. But as I've written more with this, I've just come to appreciate how good this pen feels when you're writing. Now, again, I've come from the Heart of Metal 1, and it's a metal pen. It's weighty, it's not super heavy, but it's a good feeling pen, and at the time I thought it was the best pen. But the Lamy pen feels like a regular pen. It's light, and that plastic feel, although maybe some people would equate that with feeling cheap, is more what I think most people write with. Again, if you write with a fountain pen, and you're used to that weight, it's fine. But if you're like me, who for work and just for casual use, my whole life, I've been using like, Bic pens or like plastic pens. And so what this pen does is, as you're holding the pen, I guess it kind of like cues into my mind like, oh yeah, you're just using a regular pen. It's not like a special pen, it's not a fountain pen. It's just like a regular pen that you've been using your whole life. And this plus writing on top of this, it just makes that writing experience really great. Again, it's so hard to explain over the internet, and it's something you have to try for yourself. But I am now a real advocate, a green eggs and ham advocate now, because I really didn't like this in the beginning, of this pen for most people, especially if you are not using heavy metal pens, like ink pens in your everyday life. I really think that this is close. And until Supernote creates a lighter plastic feeling pen, I think this is absolutely the way to go. So along with just enjoying the writing experience, again, I use this primarily for writing and note-taking, writing scripts for my YouTube channels, I've really discovered a lot of the extra features. And I think, thinking back to the Supernote A6X, it took me a while to also discover some of the features, because when I get a device, especially for something like writing, I already know what I want to do, and I feel like I don't explore as much because it does what I want it to do. So I just want it to write. So I'm not really going to be exploring all these different features. Can it write well? Can it organize stuff? And how does it feel as I'm writing? Those are the things that are important to me as a writer. So everything else, like, while cool and interesting, it can read ebooks and PDF, all that stuff is wonderful. But I'm just saying, for someone who bought it because I want to write, for those who write, that's what I'm focusing on. So anything outside of that sphere, nice features, but I'm really not going to spend the time to really explore that. because I want to make sure that I'm exploring all the features and all of the details and all of the things that they added to make this a good writing experience. So a couple of things though I do want to mention that I discovered, right? It's in the tutorial, but you know, it takes me a while to like find these things. It's this left sidebar here. So on the original Supernote, on the right side, there was this sidebar, which if you kick it up, it refreshes, which is very satisfying, by the way. It's one of those, like, it feels nice to hit that. But the left side now has an additional bar, and you can set the gestures for that. Because I make a lot of mistakes when I write, and these pens don't have an eraser feature, which is fine. That's totally fine. I experimented with using the left sidebar, putting my 2 fingers on there as the eraser, as well as my 2 fingers on the actual tablet for the eraser. It was a little over redundant. I realized I don't need that. So instead I changed it back to lasso on the side, and then on the tablet, double fingers to circle and have that erase delete tool. I also want to mention expanding my use of different templates, because when I first used this, one of my concerns was the scaling of it between these 2 different devices. If you use it on this device or you start the template on this device, it scales up on this one. It makes just everything bigger, understandable, but again, not something that I had expected when I got this device. Now, the templates that I have used and explored on this device have been quite different. So originally, I was a wide ruled user only. However, I have been using the 8mm rule, which is the one that I'm currently using here. I've changed to college ruled, which gives me a little bit smaller lines on both devices. It's okay. Again, I still like wide ruled on this one. Just to me, the line spacing on that is perfect. But because I've been using this one more, college rule is fine. And I've also been using this one called 4-wire. It's kind of like in band when you had like is it the clefs, the staffs? I don't know. But it's like 4 lines that go across and there's like spacing in between. I assume it's for like music, but I actually found it's very nice for taking notes because of that extra spacing. Because I realize when I'm writing scripts, I want like blocks of lines. Like I want a lot of lines like this to write on. But when I'm taking notes or I'm writing out like checklists or things to do or just real quick things, I actually found that the 4-wire has been quite good. Okay, so this is what the 4-wire one looks like. Now you may be thinking, what are you doing with that? But I just like the fact that there's small lines and then there's these spaces in between. It just gives me flexibility when I'm taking notes, because oftentimes I'm listing things out anyway, and it gives me what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different sets of 4 lines, which I think is great. Again, just something I'm exploring and trying to experiment with, but I actually do like the spacing. Okay, and the last thing, and this has probably been the biggest revelation in getting this device after using this device for so long. I prefer the A6 size. I know it seems weird that I only figured that out after getting the A5 size. Now maybe that just applies to me because of the way that I write, but let me just sort of share my writing workflow, my experience. So on most days when I'm writing, I'm sitting up and there's no table in front of me. So the way that I write is I hold the tablet in my left hand and I'm just writing like this. And I could write for a while like this because that's what a notebook is. Like, I'm used to writing with smaller notebooks. See, so to me, the grip on the A6X is perfect. It's obviously bigger than a phone, a little bit bigger than I think than like a smaller Kindle. But the way that I hold the template, or the way that I hold the tablet, I hold it like this, thumb up front, 4 fingers on the back. And even as I'm holding it like this is how my thumb changes off to the side. So this is how I'm holding it as I'm writing. This is how I'm holding it, and I'm writing like this. I'm writing scripts, whatever it is that I'm doing. I found with the A5 size, right, I still have the same grip. I have 4 fingers in the back, thumb on the left side, it's fine. But it's so much bigger. You know, it kind of reminds me of like when Bob Ross, the painter, used to paint. He used to have that huge palette where you put all the colors on it, right? And that's sort of what it reminds me of, having a device this large that I'm actually holding while I'm writing. Now, maybe other people, they have a beautiful setup, right? Like some of the famous novelists and writers, where they have a beautiful like desk and they can just focus and be quiet, and then they can actually put the device flat on a table and then write like this. That's not me. Okay, that's not how I write. And so having a larger device at the A5 size, it just makes it harder because it puts more pressure on my fingers as I'm holding this device, and it just seems a lot bigger. So to me, if you know your writing situation and you're gonna have a desk, you're gonna be situated for a while somewhere. So it's either a classroom or you know, coffee shop, or you just have that writer's nook where you can just go and focus. Maybe even in the office, you put it flat on your desk. Then the A5 is great. I think the extra space on the screen is nice. Obviously, it's very slick with the UI. Everything about it is wonderful. But I'm talking about here about size. But to me, if you're like me and you're a writer on the go and you just want to write down notes and you're more mobile, I want to sit on a couch, I want to write, then this to me is the better size. And that's hard for me to say because, you know, obviously this is the new kid on the block, right? Everyone's so excited about this device, and I am too. But I would say that between the two devices, for most people who just want to write, take notes, I feel like this one is still the size. And maybe as I use this A5 size more and more, I will change my mind. Just like I changed my mind about this pen. It's possible. But from using it heavily in both my YouTube scripts and just daily life taking notes, and now I've even used it for my work as just jotting down notes for work, I still strongly feel like the A6 size is better for most people, and it's what I would recommend to friends or family who asked me about this device. I would say, I know you're used to this size. This is like a folder paper back in school or one of those composition notebooks, and if that's what you're trying to replicate, absolutely. But I just feel like this is the way to go, and it's unfortunate because I feel like you're not going to know that until you have both devices in your hands and you're using them consistently. I remember when I got the A6X, I thought it was too small. I thought I made a mistake, but I used it more and more and more, and I realized that that's the size for me because I prioritize mobility, lightness, and just ease of use, being able to hold it in one hand. I don't see how you can hold this in one hand as long. Perhaps people out there got strong fingers and strong hands. I'm getting older, and yeah, it's just harder to hold something at this size. Even with the weight being light, it's just hard to hold it at this size. And I also understand it's somewhat ironic that someone who was sent the Manta would then basically go ahead and recommend the Nomad. And I guess in a sense, I would want to encourage people who are thinking about the Nomad and they've been waiting for the Manta, but it's harder for them to get. Personally, I would just say, go get the Nomad. I mean, the Supernote devices are excellent, so either one's going to be fine. But size-wise, it's hard for me, unless those use cases, like I mentioned, are there for you. It'd be hard for me to be like, this is the best tablet ever. This is the one that you need to get. It is, but I'm afraid that after a month, after the newness wears off, after all that stuff wears off, this is just going to end up on your desk, on the bookshelf, in your drawer, and you're not going to use it because of the size. Is you just think, it's kind of humbug, I might as well just use paper. This takes paper out of my life pretty much because it's so small and easy to use, light, I can carry it. I don't need to write things down on scraps of paper. This, on the other hand, is a little bit more serious. It's like, okay, bringing out the big notebook. And I feel like for more people, they are less likely to want to use it. So that's just my caution after 2 weeks. Again, just want to put that out there. At this point with my Manta, I am glad that I have it and I'm going to continue to use it. But 2 weeks out for a lot of people, I hope that people don't feel buyer's remorse for what they bought. And I hope that these videos are more conversational. They talk about real life experience and what you could expect if you got this device and maybe some of the challenges that you may also be facing. Again, it's very different for me because they sent this to me. So that already changes the way that I talk about this device versus if I have to pay for it with my own money. However, I will say that, again, if it was up to me, I would highly recommend the Nomad. And if I didn't have the A6X, although I wouldn't know how, if I didn't have the A6X, I would probably buy the Nomad. But then if I didn't have the A6X, then I wouldn't know how great Supernote is. So let me just put it this way. If Rada said, okay, we'll send you this Manta, you could keep it, or if you like, you could send it back and trade in your A6X for a Nomad. Those are your only two options. As nice as it is to have this, okay, don't get me wrong, it's very nice to have the Manta. I'd be thinking about it, like sending the Manta back and trading in my A6X for the Nomad, maybe the special edition one with the cool Lamy pen, that one. Like, I just think I get a lot more use out of it in my own personal workflow. Again, I'm so thankful that I got this one, and I wouldn't have known that unless I would have tried this one. But I'm really just trying to say, like, really think about what your workflow will be, your purposes for it, your writing space, your environment, because this is a lot bigger. I mean, it's double the size, but to me, it's a lot more situational when you write with this versus with the A6 size. I feel like you can just take this around. It's very versatile. And for me, you know, I got kids, I got a job, I'm on the go a lot. I don't have a writer's nook. And so I need to be more mobile and versatile, flexible when it comes to writing. And so the A6 size provides all those things. So again, those are just my thoughts after a couple of weeks of use. I'd love to know what other people have to think about the device. I hope that these videos are also helpful in getting into the mind of somebody who actually is using this thing. I'm not comparing it. Again, I have no affiliate links. This channel's not even monetized. I'm just trying to make videos that help people, and hopefully they can decide whether they want to get, first of all, the Manta, or maybe they should think about the Nomad as a possible option. So thanks for watching.